Windsor, 1836. The king raises his glass on his own 71st birthday and suddenly delivers a toast that freezes the guests in place. "I shall live just long enough for my young niece to come into her rights, and after that, let the flood come. The Duchess of Kent shall never be regent." The hall falls into tears, the Duchess pales more than the walls, and the old sea dog squints with satisfaction. Just a couple more years, and the vow will become reality. But how did the third son of Mad George, who once brawled with his fists in dockside taverns and dreamed of selling Buckingham Palace for use as barracks, end up at the very heart of a dynastic battle? The answer is a chain of incredible turns: a barroom fight, a conspiracy involving George Washington, a love affair with an actress that produced 10 illegitimate children, a sudden farcical coronation, and finally a quiet but precise act of retribution against an insolent relative. Today we'll break this story into 5 chapters and uncover why William IV was nicknamed the Weekend King, and how a single toast turned into a blow that shook the entire political game of the Victorian era. London was still asleep when 13-year-old Prince William quietly took the ceremonial breeches from the wardrobe and put them right back. He had no need for court finery today. Instead of silk, a coarse sailor's jacket. Instead of a crested carriage, the training frigate Pegasus. The third son of King George III was going to sea as an ordinary midshipman, and no one on deck was about to bow and scrape before him. That was exactly what William wanted. His father's court gave the boy claustrophobia, etiquette lessons, insincere bows, an elder brother who never put a foot wrong. But on a Thames cutter, wind, wet planks, freedom. William had asked to join the Royal Navy himself. And George, assuming his son would come running home after the first storm, had generously agreed. He miscalculated. The young prince blended in as just another naval cadet. In the mornings, he scrubbed the deck. In the evenings, he entertained the mess with bawdy ballads. He even cooked his own porridge, much to the horror of the palace chefs. The idyll shattered in a Spanish port. After filling his belly with rum, William got into trouble at a tavern with 3 shipowners. Words flew, then a stool went through the window, and the arriving patrol snapped the irons shut. Only one problem: the drunken brawler they had arrested was a prince of the blood. The guards blanched, the cell door flew open, and William returned to the ship joking. Always nice to remind the world who pays for its chains. The crew laughed, the officers less so. This equal shipmate had switched on royal privilege at just the right moment. The real trial awaited William on another continent. In the thick of the War of Independence, his frigate dropped anchor off Manhattan. America was buzzing with the name of General Washington, and in the rebel headquarters a daring plan took shape. Kidnap the fearless young Briton, a living symbol of the monarchy. Word of it leaked to London. The prince's guard was tripled, while William merely smirked. "If they saw me without my uniform, they'd hardly bother to trade me for anything important." Joke or not, the prize eluded them. The hostage never arrived. By the early 1790s, William was a captain, a favorite of common sailors, and the terror of London's ballrooms. But his taste for spectacle brought him a touch of farce. After one soirée, he tripped on a marble staircase and broke his arm. That injury, along with a public speech opposing a new war with France, turned his dream of returning to active naval duty into an impossibility. Ministers politely told him, "We appreciate your enthusiasm, Your Highness, but perhaps you'd best remain ashore." What the prince didn't yet know was that the roughest storms of his life lay ahead, and not one of them would be at sea. Summer of 1790. The Drury Lane Theatre buzzes with anticipation as Irish actress Dorothea Jordan flits onto the stage. Bright laughter, legs of impossible length, and the reputation of a brazen comedian. In the royal box, the young Captain Prince William forgets the play entirely. When she bows to the audience, her smile seems aimed squarely at him. After the curtain falls, he slips backstage to pay a compliment, and within the hour is inviting Dorothea to show him the real London. So begins a romance that scandalizes high society more than any revolutionary pamphlet. William rents a villa near Twickenham, hangs a sign calling it Bushy House, and installs Dorothea there as a wife, only without the Archbishop. She calls him simply Gull, after his flagship, and sews him sailors' jerseys instead of wigs. Society whispers that actresses are women of easy virtue, and a prince must be an example. William answers with a muffled chuckle, inviting anyone who doubts him to Sunday lunch, promising they'll find roast beef, not high drama, on the table. A year later, the first cry of a newborn fills the drawing room. The boy is christened George Fitzclarence. Then comes a girl, then another boy, until the count reaches an even 10. William plays galley cook with the children. Dorothea capers in comic wigs. For His Highness, it is paradise. For the royal treasurer, a nightmare. Alimony, governesses, and the upkeep of a bustling household. Debts rise faster than Fitzclarence's. In St. James's Palace, the murmurs grow. The prince is a father, but not a husband. Order must be restored. By 1811, the prince is 46. The royal family, desperate for legitimate heirs, and his creditors, desperate for payment, converge on a simple solution: part with the actress and marry a respectable princess whose dowry will cover the debts. William hesitates, but the reckoning is merciless. The ship of domestic bliss is sinking under the weight of unpaid bills. He hands Dorothea an agreement: an annual allowance, the right to raise the children, and one harsh clause: never again to set foot on the stage. The actress signs it as though delivering a false line and leaves Bushy House. Within a few years, debt overwhelms Dorothea. She breaks the agreement, accepting a role to feed the younger Fitzclarences. In response, William, now formally free and a viable candidate for the throne, takes the children from her and cuts the payments. Stripped of both family and profession, she leaves for the continent and soon quietly disappears from public life. Newspapers report a sad end in France, while the prince writes a single word in his diary: L, as if forcing out a forgotten sorry. Bushy House falls silent. The king's sailor's hands have no helm of domestic joy to grasp. Instead, a marriage map of Europe is unfurled over his head. Now William is tasked with the impossible: to find a young, honest, royal-blooded bride, willing to forget the 10 little Fitzwilliams. Rumor has it he would whisper to the luckiest contender, "My dear, I never stay with wives longer than a single war." But did there exist a princess willing or able to partner such a contradiction? December 1817. Funeral torches flicker over Windsor, escorting Princess Charlotte, the only legitimate heir, to her final rest. In the chapel, all of England weeps, while nearby, 52-year-old Prince William does a quick mental tally. It's down to us, 3 aging brothers and not a single child fit for the crown. Thus begins the most awkward speed dating session in dynastic history. William's first bet is the young Princess Augusta of Hesse-Kassel. He asks his younger brother Adolphus to sound out the prospective bride, only for Adolphus to send back news of his own engagement to that very Augusta. Fiasco number 1. Next, 2 Danish princesses turn him down outright. The Fitzclarence baggage train is too long for their liking. Around court, the joke spreads. William's looking for a woman, but one unaware of his past, now to find a girl without eyes or ears. By spring 1818, the list has dwindled to a quiet, 25-year-old Princess Adelaide of Saxe-Meiningen. A tiny German duchy, a modest dowry, but a reputation like an angel in a lace cap. Groom meets bride 1 week before the ceremony. She blushes, he jokes about his sailor's calluses, and they decide that's all the acquaintance they need. On July 11, they wed in the glass house at Kew Palace. Rain drums against the panes as the royal family exhales in relief. Adelaide promptly lays down a domestic manifesto: cut the household staff, sell off surplus carriages, and scrap any drinking after midnight. To society's surprise, William complies. Debts shrink, and raucous dinners are replaced by quiet chess games at Clarence House. 2 months later, doctors confirm she's pregnant. The newspapers rejoice. An heir is on the way. But on March 27, 1819, little Charlotte is born 7 weeks premature and survives only until dawn. Adelaide does not weep in public. She rises, curtsies to the midwives, and thanks the servants. William sits at her bedside whispering, "We'll try again." Again means 3 more heartbreaks in a row: a miscarriage in 2020, stillborn twins 2 years later, and another lost son in 2024. Each disappointment makes the couple quieter and their relatives sharper in their gossip. Meanwhile, one of the less prudent brothers, the Duke of Kent, produces a daughter, Victoria. England breathes easier, but William feels a new emotion: jealousy. Victoria's mother, the Duchess of Kent, carries herself as a future regent and slips in barbs about children of the stage. The sailor king in waiting stays silent, but the thought of eventual revenge itches beneath his wig. Summer, 1830. A pre-dawn bell tolls over George IV's palace. The monarch is gone, and a courier gallops to Clarence House. William glances at the sleeping Adelaide, fastens his frock coat, and murmurs to himself, "Looks like we're playing this one without rehearsals." He has yet to realize that, with his very first line, he will turn his own coronation into a full-blown comedy of errors. Coronation morning. Fog over Westminster smells of damp soot, and the Lord Chamberlain is on the verge of tears. The new monarch has flatly refused the Golden State coach. "I'll take a road dray. The crown is heavy enough as it is," William grumbles. The procession sets off. In the narrow streets, the cart jolts so violently the guards fear the crown might tumble under the wheels. In the abbey, rich velvet has been unfurled. The king looks at the cloth like a sailor staring at cobwebs. "Why all this drapery? I'm not a parrot." He tears away half the train, leaving the royal mantle with an absurd stump. Heralds hiss, the orchestra falters, and William beams broadly at the guests, making sure they know who's running the ceremony. After the service, he hosts what might be called an economy-class reception. No fireworks, no stuffed swans, no quail-feathered porcelain. Instead, barrels of ale, roast beef, and a toast: "To the Treasury not crying when I leave the room." A few weeks later, the king unveils a little business plan to his ministers. "I'll put Buckingham Palace into good hands. Could be barracks, or give it to Parliament. Let them debate taxes under cherubs on the ceiling." Courtiers blanch. Such a blatant proposal to sell off royal symbols has never been seen. The deal never happens, but word of the Saucepan Palace sweeps Europe. At the helm is a man more at home in a ship's cabin than in gilded halls. Politicians soon feel the naval style. In summer 1831, the House of Lords drags its feet on the Reform Bill. The Prime Minister begs. It's time to dissolve the obstinate aristocrats. At dawn, William mounts his horse, gallops to Westminster, and suddenly strides into the chamber, crown on head, that distinctive glint in his eyes. One peer, panicking, waves his riding whip in the air to shout over the noise. The king silently unrolls a parchment. Parliament is dissolved. Fresh elections are coming. The scene looks more like a ship under emergency drill than a law-abiding monarchy. But the reform, in the end, passes. While William runs the country in his own style, Princess Victoria grows up in Kensington Palace, and her mother, the Duchess of Kent, builds her own political nest. She refuses receptions attended by the actress's bastards, demands a private stable, and, most dangerously, publicly reminds everyone, if the king should depart early, I will govern until my daughter comes of age. William seethes but keeps silent. Only one thing holds him back: the calendar. Victoria is just 17, 1 year short of the magic 18. In autumn 1836, the king orders his secretary, "All my letters, into the fire." His hand falters only over a bundle inscribed in dark ink, Sophia. A daughter who had died in childbirth 5 years earlier had once asked to live in the palace. His reply had been a curt, cold line, "Cannot." The king rereads the line, squints, and locks the papers in a casket. To the world, he's the jolly sailor, but the shadow of missed reconciliations grows longer. June 4th, 1837. His own 72nd birthday. In Windsor's mirrored hall, the elite gathers, the Duchess of Kent glittering in emeralds, certain that fate is already on her side. The king rises, taps his goblet with a fork. "I wish to live another 3 weeks, just 3, so that no regent can slip into my chair." The hall falls into tomb-like silence. Ladies hide their tears, and the Duchess is, for the first time, lost for words. The king steps onto the balcony, inhales the night air, and whispers, "Hold on, old frame, just a little longer." Whether he can outrun the calendar remains an open question. Ahead lies the final day in a race against the clock. June 1837. In an emptied Windsor, England sleeps in broken snatches. Drum majors rehearse fanfares for Victoria's 18th birthday, while in the royal apartments a night lamp still burns. William IV is counting the hours. The doctor warns, the heart is behaving like a storm pump, pistons still working, but the seal splitting. June 18th. The palace nurses recall old naval folklore. Captains don't give up the watch before the signal. The king asks for the curtains to be drawn open, listens to the Dawn Nightingale chorus, and tells his valet, "Write this order: my property to be divided fairly between the Queen and the Fitzclarence children, but without grand titles. Let them live honestly, without draining the treasury." An hour later he dictates a second note, to send Lord Melbourne a draft law easing service conditions for naval recruits. Even now, lying under lace sheets, he is mentally on deck. At 5:45 p.m. that day, the Duchess of Kent, convinced the hour is near, asks to see the monarch. For the first time in years, she enters his chambers without ceremony. William, silvered by the lamp's weak light, raises an eyebrow. "Your Grace," he whispers, "I kept my word. Victoria will greet the dawn as an adult. Now Osborne House, the yachts, and the Great Seal of the Crown you will receive from her, not from you." He lays a hand on the stack of signed rescripts, a signal that every paper is already in order. The Duchess bows slightly, understanding the argument is closed forever. Queen Adelaide remains at his bedside, reading him passages from Robinson Crusoe, his favorite book from his cadet days. At the part about rescue from the deserted island, William suddenly smiles. "We've brought her into harbor, Mother Adelaide, the pilot signaling home." June 20, 2:12 a.m. The sleeping wing is almost silent. Outside, raindrops tap against the grills. The gentleman ushered notes the time. The king has finished his voyage exactly 27 days before his 72nd birthday and 11 months old. 2 weeks beyond the minimum limit he had proclaimed at the banquet. The doctors cover his face with the silk cloth. Adelaide exhales slowly. He made it. At 5 a.m., 2 messengers ride out on separate roads, one to Kensington, one to Parliament. Victoria wakes to a quiet knock and receives a packet with the laconic message, "His Majesty has passed. Long live the Queen." She silently crosses her slender fingers, throws a black shawl over her nightgown, and walks to the council chamber, where the air still smells of morning candles. The legacy of the Captain King. The Treasury. Thanks to William's thrift, the crown passes to Victoria without crushing debts, the household budget reduced by a third, and the sale of surplus carriages funding Windsor's renovations. The Constitution. The precedent of a king personally dissolving Parliament remains a moral, if not formal, tool, proof to legislators that the monarchy can still tap the candelabra if the Lords indulge in sabotage. Naval reform. His signed statute improves life for the lower deck, pay stabilized, flogging limited, and within a decade, Britain breeds an entire generation of loyal sailors. A gentle footprint. For all his roughness at balls, in private life, William abandoned Puritan restrictions on the press. Newspapers gained the right to criticize ministries openly, instead of merely praying over them. On his tombstone in Windsor is carved simply, William, King and Sailor. No florid epithets. And in Buckingham Palace, never sold despite his wishes, a year later a small portrait was hung. A stoop-shouldered man in a plain naval coat with an unruly lock and a mischievous smile. Queen Victoria ordered the caption, "The one who held the course." Thus ended the odyssey of a monarch who made rule almost cheerful and frugality fashionable. And while across the ocean they built 5-volume epics, Britain quietly whispered, "Thank you, Captain. Fair winds."